It is podcast 55. It's a new year, and check it out. I'm wearing progressive lenses. I'm a nerd now. Yes. I'm 49 now also, and coming into terms with my mortality, and it's not fun growing old. I get out of bed a little bit more sore, but we don't need to get into that right now. Let's talk about today's podcast. Might have a special guest joining us. I'm got my fingers crossed, but let me tell you what we're going to be talking about. I'm kind of stuttering over my words already. Haven't done this in a while. I apologize, but we're gonna get this figured out here. So today I filmed the winning team at the General Tire Summit Cup back in November. Going to share a little bit about that experience. Was super cool. Vero Beach, Florida. Really neat. Went on vacation with my wife to a dying lake in California. Weird. Also, gonna share with you a great tip on tipping spoons for ice fishing from my friend Jason Mitchell. Wonderful dude. And wait till you see this footage of this bass boat taking on a tornado. I don't recommend fishing in severe weather, especially when a tornado is coming. Wait till you see this. And this bait right here, the Berkley Power Switch. I love this thing, and we're going to be talking about ways to fish this different ways. And there's a guy that's using these to ice fish. I'm not surprised by it. We're going to be talking about that and so much more. Let's get into it.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
All right, so it's been kind of a crazy start of the year. I'm getting used to these progressive lenses. That's the first thing. So I'm now wearing glasses. Not all the time. I need them for close-up. From a distance, it's more important. It's the close-up stuff that is an issue for me. And I'll tell you, like progressive lenses. So if you're not familiar with the progressive lenses, you're a young person, and your eyes aren't going to crap like mine are. You don't have to worry so much about this, okay? But if you have eye issues or you're starting to get eye issues, progressive lenses are really weird. They have, like in the lower section here, it's like for close-up on the lower part of the lens. It's like close-up, and then in the center of the lens, it's a little bit farther out, and then at the top of the lens, it's distance. So I'm really having a hard time getting used to that aspect, so I'm pretty much just using them for close-up stuff. I would never drive with these things because essentially when you're supposed to kind of use your nose to, okay, if I want to find something that is in focus, I kind of use my nose to go, okay, yeah, right there, that's in focus. Okay, and then over here, if I'm looking at something at distance, I move my nose a little bit, and then you're using your nose is kind of the way that you determine distance. You're moving your head up and down when you're moving your nose, of course, and that's changing where your focus is on the glasses. Really strange, and when you do that, it's distorted. Everything's just kind of bends. So I would never use these for driving or anything like that. That seems absolutely insane to me. But for close-up stuff, and actually when I was putting together this podcast, doing the research for it, I had these on like exclusively. I hope you think they look good on me. I think they do. I kind of feel like a little bit more mature, which I need. I'm 49 years old now. I'm really kind of coming to terms with what that means. We've been doing this podcast. I mean, honestly, I feel in so many ways. I don't have children. My wife and I, we don't have kids. I live kind of a strange life, I travel here and there, and because we don't have kids, we kind of feel, my wife and I, sort of like we're eternal college kids, sort of. And that can be kind of a problem because you shouldn't go through your whole life thinking you're in your 20s. Because now I'm nearly 50 years old and I still kind of behave like I'm in my 20s, And so doing this podcast, I know I've said this a billion times. This has kind of just been a hobby for me. And it really needs to be something that is more of a moneymaker now. Approaching 50, all these things are running through my head like, dude, what are you doing with your career? I'm happy with my career. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy what I do, but I'd like to do, I like filming guys out fishing. I've done it a lot. I enjoy it. I love being outside. I love, obviously, the sport of fishing. I need to do things, though, for me, just personally, that are more creative. And that's fine and dandy, if you want to do that as a freelancer, just for fun. Okay, you want to be more creative. But ultimately, your time, if you're going to be spending a lot of time doing something, especially as a freelancer, that stuff is potentially taking away from you making money at a job somewhere. So when I'm doing these creative, like these projects like this that are just been more of like a hobby, and it's just like I like dabbling and stuff, I need to start making money at this. And one of the hardest parts for me is I'm old school. I'm nearly 50 years old. In less than a year, okay, in December of this year, I'm going to be 50. And so it just means that I have to start getting serious. I can't be just like flim-flamming around and just, and I got to have a retirement, y'all. So I am going to bear down this year. And in many ways, I have to kind of kill. I know that's harsh to say in those terms. I kind of need to kill my old self, my somewhat lazy, undisciplined, acting like I'm in college self, okay, and get disciplined and serious about this podcast, about, another fishing podcast, Angling Uploaded. And part of it is just because I'm an older dude. It's been a real struggle for me to wrap my mind around actually making money in social media. It was very hard for me to go, okay, should I really invest all this time in this? Can this really be a thing? It's a thing. It's a thing. In fact, I'm so tired of hearing like social media. It's not, we need to change that name. It's new media. And like when you turn on your TV, that is legacy media. I don't know that, TV's ever going to go away, but, okay, I know for sure that this new media, with podcasting and with YouTube videos, and it ain't going away. It's the future, and I love it. It's just taken me in many respects. I know I've harped on this before a lot. I apologize, but it's one of those things where it seemed too good to be true, because in so many respects, this is exactly what I've wanted forever. I am in my basement, okay? And I'm able to potentially reach so many people. The fact that, you're listening to this or you're watching this and you could be in another country is so exciting to me. I love this kind of a platform, or, like podcasting. I've always been a fan of radio. So it's very an exciting time for me. It's been scary. Don't get me wrong. The last 5 years have been bonkers. But it's been exciting, and I just what I'm finding is that if you want to delve into something like this yourself, I'm happy. I want to give you tips. I mean, I'm all for people doing this. Elon Musk on X has been saying that you are the media now. I couldn't agree with that more. I think, not to get too crazy political here, I'm right down the middle, in case you're wondering what my political persuasions are, okay? I'm not left or right. I'm right down the middle. I get annoyed by both sides, all right? Including the middle. I get annoyed with myself. But it's one of those things where I lost my train of thought. And this happens. This is not uncommon. But this is a new time, okay? I remember now. We are the media, okay? I think in many respects, legacy media has failed us, especially when it comes to news. So I'm excited about this new media, and I just want to be a part of it. And really, I look at it this way. If I don't get my act together this year, 2025, I ain't ever getting it together. So this is what I'm going to say. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to say it because it's really true. If I don't get my act together this year with doing this on a regular basis, it has to be consistent. Why would you listen to this if it's just once in a while? There's a podcast on. If I'm not committed to it, why the hell should you be committed to it? So I'm going to say this. I will pull the plug on this whole thing if this thing doesn't go this year. Okay? That's what I'm saying. All right, so let's get into this podcast. I felt it was very important to say all that stuff. But I love what's going on in the internet. And I just need to be a part of it. And I love fishing, and I love media, and I love cameras, and I editing's a little. Me and editing, we have a. But I can like editing too. It's a creative outlet. But it's the whole sitting at a computer for so long. I like being outside, right out there. Okay, that's where I feel most comfortable. But I like what's going on, and so thus the just me keeping on, I'm just trying to keep doing this, and I'm very optimistic. So I appreciate you guys watching, listening, however you're consuming this content. I appreciate that you put up with my nonsense. Hopefully, you're able to get some value out of this. You'll learn something. That's my goal. I want this to be mutually beneficial for both of us. Let's go. All right, so I filmed the last General Tire Team Series called the Summit Cup in Vero Beach, Florida, way back in November. All right, but I haven't talked about it, and I want to share this because there's a really cool experience. I think the Team Series, the General Tire Team Series, it's not going anywhere. I hope, for the love of God, please don't let this go anywhere, because I'm seeing interactions with pros, between teammates that is so refreshing. It's stuff that every angler, tournament angler can identify with. Bass fishermen, walleye fishermen that's fished tournaments. We started fishing team tournaments. And fishing with a buddy, right? You don't even need to fish tournaments. The idea, fishing with a buddy. Everybody fishes with a buddy, right? So you see with pros, another side of the pros, you see pros getting frustrated with one another. You see the very different styles that they have. Sometimes you'll see a pro really accelerating. You're kind of like, oh, this guy's a heck of a lot better than that other guy. I mean, I've kind of, I'm thinking some of those thoughts sometimes. I'm not going to tell you who I've thought that about, because I want to have a job and I need to have a relationship with these anglers. But I guarantee you watch this, you're going to see the same, you're going to think the same stuff. The Team Series is super relatable, and there's stuff we're watching that we just have not seen before in fishing. Okay? And I'm loving that aspect of it. And I'm going to say, there's been... There's camps of like people that are just BASS, and there's camps that are like, okay, I like Major League Fishing, or and camps like both. I think both are doing. They're. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not biased, because I've been doing. I've done a ton of work for Major League Fishing, and they've been great to me. They're a fantastic client. I've known them for forever. Everybody there. And I think that Major League Fishing in the last, let's just say 15 years, 15, how long have they been around now? Major League Fishing, what are we looking at? Close to 15 years, if not 15 years now? I guess it's nearly 15 years. Let's call it 15 years that Major League Fishing has been around. You have to make an argument here that Major League Fishing has done way more for the sport of bass fishing. Okay, trying different concepts, the score tracker. Every angler knows how everybody else is doing, catch, weigh, release. the periods, right? That really lend themselves having a deadline that you got to get a fish in before the end of the period. There's a whole lot of more dramatic elements in a Major League Fishing event, okay? Then there's just I don't want to criticize other tournament organizations, okay? But to me, Major League Fishing has done more innovative things than its competitors, and they need to be applauded for that. Some things have really worked in my opinion. Some things haven't. This team series, it works, and it's just another feather in the cap of Major League Fishing. Now, granted, everybody, it's like bass is bass because they were kind of, the first. And people have that nostalgic thing. I grew up on bass. I went to the 94 and 95 Classic. Okay, I saw Brian Kershaw win the Classic. And the next year was Mark Davis. So I grew up on bass, all right? But things we're getting stagnant. Major League Fishing comes along, shakes things up, and I really think they need to be commended for that. And this team series is just another one of these things. I need to have a better vocabulary. It's just another one of those items. Items is better than things. Items that you can put in the pro category, the positive category of Major League Fishing. And so this last event that I filmed was super. It was awesome. They did I love the format. So if you haven't seen the format yet, I think you need to have Outdoor Channel be able to watch it. But really try to check it out. It's a great format. So let me just go through this here. So it was really weird. So we're in Vero Beach, like I said, Florida. And I was staying at the old LA Dodgers spring training facility. That's where they set us up, the camera crew, for this event. And it was amazing. So right here is where we stayed. And it says Jackie Robinson, number 42. I'll read you a sign here shortly that talks, that goes through what this, how old this spring training facility is, and just how impressive this whole complex is. But that right there was where all the cameras were. We had all the cameras in there, all the equipment, and there is a field in there. There's an indoor baseball field inside there. Let me show you another picture. This is where I stayed. These are like rooms, apartments, that I imagine a lot of very famous baseball players stayed, in these rooms. So I stayed in one of these rooms all week, and that's, when spring training was happening, that's where I imagine all the baseball players and their families stayed. So that was a really cool experience, staying there. This is inside the complex. That's inside that complex I showed you. And this is that baseball park. Inside, baseball field inside the complex. So that's where our cameras were. And this was just a quote inside of the complex where, a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. That's Jackie Robinson. I just thought I'd capture that. I'd film that and show it to you. I think that's a good quote. A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. Jackie Robinson. So great quote there. And what else do we have here to show you? So we go here. I want to show you this particular photo here. So this is a sign outside of this complex that describes what, more about what's going on, the history of this complex. And the sign says, baseball in Dodgertown. Dodgertown was the spring training facility of the Brooklyn, Los Angeles Dodgers. Originally part of a World War II naval air station, Dodgertown became the spring training home of the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1948. When local business leader Bud Holman convinced the Dodgers to set up a spring training facility in Vero Beach. Here, Dodger President Branch Rickey sought to create a baseball campus where players could live and play together. Dodgertown was the South's first racially integrated spring training camp, where 600 plus players from the Brooklyn Dodgers, 26 minor league teams played. Okay. Hall of Fame players Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella were among the first African American players to train here. In 1953, Dodger President Walter O'Malley privately built the 6,500-seat Holman Stadium, a state-of-the-art ballpark at Dodgertown. During its history, 6 World Championships and 14 National League pennant-winning teams played at Dodgertown. In 2001, the Dodgers sold Dodgertown to Indian River County, then leased it back until 2008 when their spring training facilities moved west to Arizona. In 2012, the O'Malley family stepped up to the what am I trying to say here? In 2012, the O'Malley family stepped up to manage historic Dodgertown as a year-round multi-sports complex. Super, super cool. I'm very impressed by that whole facility. It was very, very cool to stay there. And let me see what else I got here for you. Oh, so yeah, so I wanted to share with you that I've never stayed in a place quite like that before. Very, very interesting. Had a good time there. So this was the field here. And so we got 4 teams of 2 competing. And I was with, on the final day, I was with Drew Gill and Marshall Robinson, who won the event. And great kids. I've worked with Drew. I say kids because anybody younger than 35 is a kid to me. Actually, 35 and younger is a kid to me. So yeah, it was a cool experience. Drew Gill and Marshall Robinson, great guys, and they really know how to do forward-facing sonar. I'll tell you that much. But this is kind of cool. This is how we started off the day. What am I trying to do here? I'm going to get my act together here with this software. But yeah, so where was I at here? Okay, so this is drone shot here, taking off at the morning takeoff, getting the anglers, getting a drone shot, this kind of hero shot of the anglers before they go out and compete. And I'm just trying to give you a flavor of everything that happened here. And let's see, let me show you this too. So yeah, so Drew Gill and Marshall Robinson won the event. There is me after the event when these guys won, filming them hoisting up their trophies. And I would say that Marshall and Drew were not favored to win this thing. It was more like Chris Lane and Bobby Lane, because they're from Florida and they really, really know, obviously, they know Florida lakes. They know, they know how to catch Florida bass. That's quite an understatement. Drew and Marshall were underdogs. But the problem is that this is the new breed of bass fishermen now. And they're so good with forward-facing sonar that they can really be a threat everywhere. And both of them use primarily a drop shot. And they're using forward-facing sonar, and they're using a drop shot with I think the primary, the worm was like a 7-inch, just a drop shot worm, Just unheard of, really. In Florida, not something that is typical. And they just drop shotted for to the wind. They were over they doubled, they more than doubled the second place weight. Okay? So they bettered the second place by double. So it was just it was a mauling, and I was in the boat with them, and I just it's something else. Forward facing sonar it's lethal. Okay, I'll put it that way. Here's another shot. Yours truly there. Just I like getting these shots because it's number one. It's just I don't always get to film the first place guys, and so it's just a great memory to have. And here's another one, a little lower angle. Good stuff. Really had a good time. So it was beautiful weather. I'm going down there in like November, and it's just, compared to Minnesota where I live, it was very, very nice. So yeah, I want to credit to Rob Matsura. Rob Matsura is a wonderful still photographer. Does a lot of stuff in bass fishing. So thank you, Rob, for those photos. And what else do I need to say here? I don't want to miss anything. Talked about drop shot. Yeah. So fun time. Beautiful place. Really enjoyed it. It was nice to, get somewhere warmer than Minnesota. As anybody in Minnesota knows, it is treacherous. Absolutely treacherous this time of year. Okay, so next, since the last kind of podcast I did just solely, I also went to Palm Springs with my wife. This was in the beginning of this month, beginning of January, and I've never been to Palm Springs before. I'm like, don't just old people go to Palm Springs? And it dawned on me, I'm going to be 50 in less than a year. And I go, oh, no, of course I should be going to Palm Springs. So we went to Palm Springs. I was not expecting to like Palm Springs as much as I did. Palm Springs, if you've never been there, it's like it's kind of set in the 50s, 60s, like the Rat Pack era. It's a place where, Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra, they would come and hang out, just be cool. Bob Hope was there. It was just where people would just chill out and just, it was a lot less hustle and bustle than, say, like L.A., which isn't that far from there. So really cool vibe, really laid-back atmosphere, awesome nightlife, beautiful, like, scenery, too, like this Indian, I believe it's called Indian Springs Canyon, I think. It's near there. If you go there, you'll find it immediately. It's like a state park. And my wife, like, easily spotted bighorn sheep, and then she spotted coyotes. She should be like a wildlife photographer or something. But beautiful place. But south of there is a very strange lake, okay? An inland lake called the Salton Sea. And let me just show you where this is, because I'm going to try to hit the right map here. That's not it. Right there. Okay. So the Salton Sea is to the north and east of San Diego and the south and east of Los Angeles. Okay? Not far from the Mexican border. But it's the largest lake in California. And my wife, and you can see on this map, if you're watching the podcast, that you can watch on YouTube. Go to Angling Uploaded and watch if you're listening to this podcast and want to see what I'm talking about here. But anyway, so the south of Palm Springs, southeast of Palm Springs is the Salton Sea. And it's California's largest lake, but it's shrinking, okay? And what's crazy is it's completely man-made. So the Salton Sea was once just dry. There was nothing there. It was a valley. It was a desert valley, okay? And long ago in I believe it was the late 1800s, early 1900s, farmers were like, holy crap, we need to settle this area because the farmland here is so rich. It's so nutrient rich. Crops are going to grow here like crazy. Only problem is that there is no water there. So an industrious man, I don't know who the name of this guy, but there was a dude that's like, I need to get water to that. It's called the Imperial Valley, if I'm not mistaken. It's actually laying, it's in a fault line. I believe it's the San Andreas Fault, which is known for big earthquakes. But it's also, by the way, the Salton Sea is on a lithium deposit, so there's lithium underneath this thing. So, batteries nowadays, everybody's using lithium. So I think there's probably a lot of people that would like to get to that lithium. But so the Salton Sea, right? It's sitting there. It was dry. There was nothing there in the 1800s and the early 1900s. But a dude was like, we need to get water there for the farmers. So they made a canal from the Colorado River that is to the west, east there. Geez, I'm terrible at directions right now. To the east there, they made a canal from the Colorado River and to take water from there and to bring it to the Imperial Valley, right? And it was working. They made the canal. It's bringing all the water for, through irrigation for the farmers, and it's going great. And the crops are doing awesome. Everybody's making money, loving life. And then all of a sudden, it just dried up. And the canal dried up because of the silt in the canals. The Colorado River has a ton of silt in it, and the canal that they created got too much sediment in it and silt, and it just stopped flowing. So, and it stopped like that. They had to quickly figure out a way to get water back to the farmers. And so south of the canal, the original canal, they made another opening to the Colorado River south of the original opening and made an opening. But the problem is there was a ton of flooding that year, and it blew apart the opening, made a gaping hole so that the Colorado River was basically changed course and flowed into what is now the Salton Sea. Okay, so the Salton Sea is completely a mistake. It was completely man-made, and one dude basically messed it all up. So a major F-up. And that's why we have the Salton Sea. It took forever to finally patch that hole. What's crazy is the only way they were able to patch that hole is they had to make a railroad trestle bridge across the hole, right? So they're making it, through, in the water. And then they just brought railroad cars loaded with rock and earth from the Sierra Nevada mountains and just kept dumping it from that railroad trestle, that railroad bridge, and just dumping it into the hole. And in like 2 years, it finally filled that hole. It stopped the flooding. It stopped the water coming into the new inland lake called the Salton Sea, and the Colorado River was finally patched up. But it's super bizarre. So that's how the Salton Sea was created. And it's one of the strangest, absolutely one of the strangest places on planet Earth, okay? And the other strange thing about it is that they never had a really good, like the state of California never really had a good way to control the levels, the water levels, right? So the only way that the Salton Sea was getting water into it, once they patched up that hole, okay, was from, they still had the original, they cleared up the original canal, got the sediment out, so that irrigation canal was open again. But the only way to get water, the only way that inland lake gets water is from leftover water that the farmers don't use. All right, well, Problem is, recently, the state has made it so that the farmers need to be more efficient with how much water they use. So there's less water going into the Salton Sea, and the Salton Sea is shrinking. It's shrinking quickly. And they already had problems like keeping the lake level like normal and stable. In the 50s and 60s, they're like, oh man, this is going to be the California Riviera. All these people from around California are going to come to the Salton Sea, and they're going to have a great time. And it's California's largest lake, and it's wonderful. They actually stocked fish. Let me show you this map again. So let me make sure I get the right one. They actually stocked fish. If you can see to the south, there's the Laguna Salada. Even further south from that, that's just another. It's just a dry. It's a salty lake, inland lake that's in Mexico. South of that more is not that far is the Gulf of California in Mexico. That is essentially a big bay of the Pacific Ocean. They took fish from there and put them in the Salton Sea, and they survived. Many of them did quite well, such as like Corvina. There's some other species, but it was Corvina that really, really did well. And so you have an inland lake that has sport fishing. So 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was sustaining a viable sport fishery. Inland, saltwater. So saltwater fish living in an inland lake. It's really bizarre. So here's some of the fish they're catching. Obviously, this black and white photo, but those are Corvina. I think there was some croaker that people would catch too. Now, there's just tilapia in there. And what's crazy about tilapia is that, I didn't know this, tilapia are from Africa, right? And they can handle a crazy amount of salt. You think of like tilapia, oh, they're a freshwater fish, right? Well, they are, but they can also like sustain a ton of salt. So as this lake is shrinking, it's becoming more and more salty. And now the only fish that can survive in it are tilapia. All the Corvina are dead. They're the only fish. And it's remarkable when you go to this place that anything can live in it, because it smells, and it's just it does not look good. And I'll show you here in a second what we're talking about. But yeah, so guys are catching good numbers of fish in it, and all up until the 90s, it was sustaining really good populations of fish. So this dude right here those are two really good Corvina. I believe those are Corvina, a saltwater fish living in an inland lake that was made by mistake by humans. So it's just a bizarre place. So let's get into it. My wife and I, we decided to go to this bizarre place. My wife wasn't really so keen on it. I was much more keen because I like, first of all, I knew that this place had fish in it, sort of. Actually, I didn't think it had any fish in it at all. I was surprised there was tilapia, but I knew that at one point it did. So I'm like, I got to see this place. I also had heard that there's areas where it's like, it's dystopic. It feels like Armageddon or like the end times, because this lake, they really thought it was going to be something, like people were going to come to it. And so in the 50s and 60s, there were developments that were created. There was a big marina on the north end in a town called Bombay Beach. That's actually where we went. So I'll show you these photos. This is my beautiful wife and I at Bombay Beach. And you can see, like, in the background, the lake is way in the background. We are standing where water, we would have been way underwater. We probably would have been all the way underwater right there. But you can see how far the lake has receded. And it's just wild. So there's all these, like, artists that come out. It's California, man. A lot of artists. And they put up like, art installations, and this one here says, "Our Lady of Lithium Valley, pray for us." So it's kind of a sad situation, not gonna lie. You've seen scenes like this. So this is Bombay Beach Marina. This is the actual, what's left of what was the marina, completely dry. You can see that's original wood. So I imagine this was probably made in the 50s, late 50s. Original wood there. And they dredged out a marina. And there was water skiing. This is supposed to be quite the place at one time. And so here's my wife sitting on a chair on this dried lake bed, and with the sign, "The only other thing is nothing." A little bit of art here, little just spooky, just kind of depressing, end times kind of stuff, And look at this. This is like leftover paddle wheel boats, just pleasure little, 2-seater paddle wheel, boats that were there. This was there when they made this marina, and people would go. You could just put yourself in that time period, 50s and 60s. People are like, "Yeah, we're Salton Sea, man. It's the place to be." Fast forward 2025. Can you imagine what they'd think if this is what, what that place became? It's just, it's really remarkable. Really bizarre place. This is like a floating tiki bar. It's not floating anymore. It's just sitting on the dry lake bed. This is just another art piece. There's a door opening to nothing, to the dying lake. This is some wind chimes that someone put out. A lot of very strange people out there. Wait till you see what I'm about to show you here. Strange, for example. So this is Bombay Beach Estates. This is like a development. Nice homes, okay? But the lake level fluctuated so crazy, and one time there was a massive flood, and all of Bombay Beach just got flooded. Just flooded the whole thing, and then the lake level receded, and all these people lost their homes, and they didn't come back to them. And so you see scenes like this where it's just a house that someone didn't come back to, and they've just let it go. And people have come in and spray painted it. I'm sure there's been plenty of homeless people in there, and that's just the scene in a lot of Salton Sea, particularly Bombay Beach. It's like something you'd see in a Mad Max movie, quite frankly. So let me show you this video. And yeah, my wife took this. This is just walking around here. Okay, and this is another installation piece here. Just bizarre, man. Bizarre. Here's wind chimes. So wind chimes. And that sand is very crunchy. There's just a lot of salt in it. And the place, there's times in the summertime, so it gets like 120 degrees in the summer. And there's algae blooms on the lake, and it just can be really, really smelly. And there's fish kills, and people in Palm Springs, when the wind's right, can smell it. And I think even as far away as like, it's Palm Springs. I was going to say Los Angeles, but I don't think that's the case. But they definitely smell it in Palm Springs sometimes. All right, this is really interesting. So this is a church service this is where they have church services, and we were there on Sunday. There was a church service earlier at 9 a.m. that we missed, but people in Bombay Beach, they come here to go to church. And it's just really remarkable that there's even anybody living in the town anymore, because it's just a bizarre ghost town. Absolutely dilapidated. So it's really, really a super interesting place. I would recommend it just because, there's not many places like that in the world anymore. Well, I don't know. There's just not that many places in the world. And so I recommend checking it out. And so there's a place there, there's a bar there when you come into Bombay Beach. It's called the Ski Inn. It's kind of funny. It's an old, it's been there when the Bombay Beach was made, right? Created. And there's the bar, there's a sign for the bar, Ski Inn. It shows someone water skiing. And it's from the time when they just had so much hope for the area, And you go into this bar, and Anthony Bourdain, the famous chef, he's since passed away, rest in peace. He went there with the show that he had, which it's escaping me right now, the name of that show, but God, I can't remember right now. But he went there and he had a patty melt and he raved about it. And now when you go into this bar, there's like a line of people to get the patty melt. So Anthony Bourdain kind of put that place on the map, but it was a super cool place. Recommend it if you go there. There's all kinds of dollar bills on the ceiling and on the walls. Really interesting place, man. If you like interesting people, you like interesting places, go to Bombay Beach, California. Highly recommended. Okay, so we are going to move on into stuff I've found on the internet in the fishing world that I find interesting, that's happening, kind of current stuff that I think's interesting, that I would like to talk with you about. Maybe you haven't heard, maybe you have heard, but you want to hear different takes. You want to hear my take on stuff. So let's go. Oh, before I forget, so I want to so at that last Team Series event, Skeet Reese, he had heard, we had a bunch of camera guys were talking how we were needing some rain gear, or we were going to buy some rain gear or something because for this next season. Skeet Reese heard us camera guys talking, and look at this, he got us, all the camera guys, he got us new rain gear. This is Grundon's rain gear. So I gave him my address, and Skeet Reese got us this great rain gear. In fact, I just used it recently and love it. So thank you, Skeet. Super, super nice of you to do that. And I realize if you're watching this podcast that I have a tendency to look at myself on the screen right here. Stand by. I'm dropping rain gear everywhere. I have a tendency to look at the screen right here, and it might be because I'm vain. I don't want to think that. I think it's just because I see movement. I'm seeing myself on my computer screen down here. It's just because anytime I see movement, I'm like a squirrel. I just look there. So there's movement, and so I have a tendency to look down. It's not because I like to look at myself. Trust me. But so I apologize that I need to look at the lens more, Underdoll. So anyway, I want to say that about Skeet. Thank you, Skeet. Super nice of you to do that. Really, really appreciate it. Grundon's, we use Grundon's bags for our camera gear. Really love this stuff, these dry bags. And so I'm really looking forward to using the Grundon's rain gear. It's really good stuff. So thank you, Skeet. You the man. Okay, so I need to change. Okay, we're going to this. Looks like yeah. All right. So this is what I have discovered that's happening in the fishing industry that I want to talk about. That's happening right now, timely or somewhat timely to me. And I want to thank really a lot of the resources that I use. I will just go, on I love Instagram for fishing stuff. It's really, people like poo-poo social media, new media. Let's call it new media. People will poo-poo new media about, it's destructive and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, Sure, it's totally destructive because it gives you exactly like topics that you want. So if you want to look up really disturbing, violent topics or just negative stuff, it's probably going to give you that stuff. But it's also a wonderful tool. Let's say you like nature, the outdoors, which I do. It's showing me all kinds of animals I never knew existed before, doing crazy things that I didn't know were possible. It's a wonderful, if you're a curious person, new media is fantastic. And if you're a fishing nut, it's fantastic because it's going to give you stuff. It's going to show you stuff that before, like we had to just solely rely on a magazine that came once a month or a TV show, and now things are coming at us. It's so much easier to get information and learn about stuff. So I think there's a lot of positives with it. And I go on Instagram, I learn about what's happening in the fishing industry. It feeds me. If I'm looking at lures, it's going to feed me more lure stuff, a new lure, that I haven't heard about. So I kind of use Instagram for doing research. So, and also reaching out to people. It's a great way to reach out to people. Like I'm able to, like people that it would have been very hard to reach out to before. Now I can see, I can follow them. I can direct message them. Hey, do you want to be on my podcast? I like what you're doing. It's a wonderful tool. So I'm kind of getting sick of everything negative, we need to do a better job of just getting people in a better state of mind where I'm not saying there doesn't need to be more positivity on social media, but we also just need to get people in a better state of mind so that they're looking up positive stuff and, but I don't know how to do that. I'm not saying I know how to do that, but anyway, Instagram's great for doing research, and also I get a lot of info. I want to thank Brett McComas at Target Walleye and Jay Kumar at Bass Blaster because those guys, they got their fingers on the pulse of the fishing industry, and I get a ton of information from those guys, through their newsletter. So check out Target Walleye and Bass Blaster, their newsletter, to really keep tabs on what's happening in, with Target Walleye, it's walleye fishing, but in the winter it's more ice fishing too. And with Bass Blasters, bass fishing. If you're into those things, check them out. Sign up to their newsletter. They help me immensely to know more what's going on in the fishing world. So with that being said, I found this on Bass Blaster. I think this really sums up very well forward-facing sonar, the things that I worry about forward-facing sonar. Okay, I am not against forward-facing sonar, but I believe there are some potential issues. Not just potential. I believe there are issues with it that we need to talk about. So anyway, this is from Bass Blaster, and it says this: what am I doing? My whole life, my whole career, the number one thing that I've enjoyed is the puzzle, putting it together. And now I'm out here just numbly throwing at dots. And that's from Jacob Wall, talking about getting distracted by focusing too hard on the forward-facing sonar screen. So I agree with this. And he also said, let's just say you pull into an area and you sit down and there's a bunch of fish suspended swimming around, and you realize, hey, this spot's got fish all over the place. You may be able to sit there all day and just pan around and float around with the trolling motor, and you're kind of just mindlessly throwing at dots. I've seen it happen to myself. I almost just kind of go numb. I almost stop really thinking. If it starts to become or feel like you're going through the motions, I'd say the number one thing I do in my fishing is I try to change what I'm doing. So I think that is important. That really kind of stood out to me because I think, okay, it's one thing. I'm talking specifically about the sport of bass fishing, competitive bass fishing right now. You can't have a sport if there's one technique that's dominating everything else, to me, it's going to be a sport killer if we don't get our act together here. So, because you can't, it's so dominant. I mean, I filmed it. I filmed it in Florida at the Team Series. These guys in Florida drop shotting in Florida and winning. I mean, crushing in a bass tournament. Okay, because of forward-facing sonar. So, you know, it's so dominant. It's because you can see that one of the hardest things about fishing is finding fish. Now you've seen them throughout the water column. That's one of the hardest things about it. I'm not against it necessarily, but I think, especially with competition, it needs to be limited. And I think Major League Fishing, the fact that they're allowing just one period for its use is awesome. I don't think it should be banned whatsoever, but I think you got to have a governor on it. You got to limit it, okay? Because it's just going to be so dominant. We're going to lose all our great patterns, all our great techniques in bass fishing. There's not going to be a guy, you know, just you know, going down a bank and pitching to lay down logs, you know, with a jig or a spinner bait, or just ripping down a bank, or shallow cranking, or, you know, all these, you know, or like suspending jerk baits, or, you know, all of these techniques we're going to lose, and everybody's just going to be doing one. For the most part, everybody is going to be doing one thing, and it's come on, you can't have everybody doing the same thing. It's going to be boring. You need variety in the sport. You need to have guys that are like good at different techniques. You can't have everybody just like, well, we're all good at forward-facing sonar now, and throwing little jig head minnows at them. Come on, man. It ain't. Major League Fishing is in my opinion has the best idea with how to handle this forward-facing sonar issue, and it's to have that this one period they're allowed to fish it. And I think it's going to be super exciting to see how strategies are developed, and I'm excited to see how all that shakes out. I think it's another feather in the cap of Major League Fishing that they can go, yeah, we have these things called periods. We have 3 periods. We can make just one period where, you know, we allow forward-facing sonar, and the other 2 periods you got to do it old school, man. You know, you can't have X-ray vision in the water column. So sorry. Fishing, a lot of what fishing is, we can't lose sight of this. A lot of what fishing is anticipation, okay? It's the anticipation. It's the not knowing. I'm making a presentation. I think a fish should be there. It's the anticipation. It's like, is there a fish there? With forward-facing sonar, okay, it's like, no, there's a fish there. And you lose that, okay? It's also really cool. It's really cool to know there's a fish there. But sometimes, especially with the sport, with competitive fishing, we need to take that away a little bit, because fishing is also about the unknown. That's what makes fishing so wonderful. It's the unknown. You're going, listen, my whole, so many years I've devoted to this sport of fishing, and I really think that there's going to be a lot of fish. These conditions, these weather conditions, these water conditions, there's going to be a lot of fish right there. And here I'm making a presentation, and I'm going to prove to myself I'm right, you know? Several presentations. No, I guess they're not there. Okay. Well, that's part of fishing, though. And then you find another area, and they're loaded, and then it's just like, it's so awesome as a fisherman to go, you know what? My hunch was correct there. Forward-facing sonar takes away a lot of that. It takes away a lot of that. I don't say we ban it. I'm not saying that. In fact, I'd love to have forward-facing sonar on my boat right now. But it's taking away from stuff, especially bass fishing. To me, it is a sport. It's a legitimate sport. But to allow forward-facing sonar to dominate so heavily, it's going to hurt this sport. And maybe the sport is in a stage where it doesn't need things to hurt it anymore. So I'm all with Jacob Wall there. I agree 100%. All right, so let's go into, I saw this, okay, it is ice fishing time in Minnesota, and couldn't have different of a winter this year as compared to last year, because last year we didn't even have a winter. There was hardly even an ice fishing. I gotta get a drink of. Oh, excuse me for a second. I gotta get a drink of Diet Mountain Dew here. God, by the way, Mountain Dew is so good. I don't care if I'm nearly 50 and I'm still drinking Mountain Dew. Okay, it's the original energy drink. Okay. And I love it. I used to bale hay, and I'd get off done baling hay as a kid, and man, there was nothing better than an ice cold Mountain Dew after a day of baling hay. So that's why I drink Mountain Dew. Okay, onward and upward. Where was I? All right, so now it's ice fishing here in Minnesota. It's cold right now. I got a heater that's hardly working right down here. I'm in my basement. It's like an ice box. I have a big heater, and I can hardly feel it doing anything. So it's cold now in Minnesota. Trucks are driving out on the ice, and this is the time I really love to ice fish, because now I can drive to spots. I don't have an ATV. I have a chest harness, and in fact, the video on Friday is there's a video going up on Friday. Check it out. It's gonna be Friday at 5 p.m. And I had to drag my first ice fishing excursion this year. I had to drag my clam shelter out with a chest harness. I walked out for like an hour to a spot and just pulling that chest harness. God knows I need the exercise, so it's not a bad thing that I had to do that, but in order to be really successful as an ice fisherman consistently, you got to be mobile, and an ATV is really necessary. So, but now that we got enough ice, I feel much more comfortable taking my truck on the ice and driving. So this is an exciting time because it's been really cold and the ice is thick now. So ice fishing is in full gear. So now I'm really kind of getting in that mindset. Okay, it's go time with ice fishing, and so. Let's see, what am I, okay, so what am I, oh, you're right, this is a video I'm bringing up right now. So this is from the great Jason Mitchell, and I've wondered this, what's the proper way to tip a spoon with a minnow, right? What are the proper ways from a real pro like Jason Mitchell? He knows, he did a tip, and this is from Target Walleye. I learned about this, and Jason Mitchell Outdoors. This is a tip that I think is really important. Jason's a stick, man. And so I'm going to use this tip when I go out the next time ice fishing. And I just want to pass this along because it's great info, and it only is going to, you're only going to get this info from a guy that really spends as much time on the water as Jason does. So this is really valuable. I think that's why I'm sharing it with you. Enjoy.
Let's talk using spoons specifically for walleyes or perch. Now, if you use a lot of spoons fishing for walleyes or perch, I'm going to show you a couple different things.
Let me start from the beginning, because this is really important. Okay, so we're going to bring this up. It's technical stuff here. All right, Jason, take it away.
Let's talk using spoons specifically for walleyes or perch. Now, if you use a lot of spoons fishing for walleyes or perch, I'm going to show you a couple different things as far as rigging up your minnow. And this doesn't really matter so much what kind of spoon you're using. Right now I'm using a ribbon flutter spoon, but if you're using a rattle spoon, doesn't matter. There's just certain things that you can do with a minnow during certain situations I believe will help you catch a lot more walleyes, especially when we're talking walleye fishing. Now you see here, this spoon here's got a lot of horizontal flutter. When you drop it, it just drops horizontal. And a lot of times we're using big pulls, big lifts to pull fish in. And sometimes with your aggressive fish, they'll hit it on that big drop. But so often what happens is the fish comes right up on you and you're just twitching that spoon to try to trigger that fish. And basically that spoon is just a delivery for that minnow or minnow head to get that minnow to rock on the bottom to trigger the fish. And so I'm going to show you what this looks like with a full minnow. So a lot of times, especially dirty water, places where you have really aggressive fish and big fish, like say for example like a Lake Winnipeg as an example, or sometimes the fish are really fired up on a place like Devil's Lake or Red Lake, we'll use a full minnow just because you have just more profile, more attraction to pull these fish in. And so when I'm using a full minnow, I still like to use a fat head.
It's a sexy
a lot,
bait well.
just because of their
Bait
durable.
container.
And so when I'm using a full minnow and I'm jigging aggressively with it, I'll usually go right through the top of the head and actually kill the minnow.
This is important. Check this
Because
out.
again, I'm jigging this bait where I don't need that minnow swimming around. Now, if I'm dead sticking with a spoon, I'll fish these minnows so that they're alive. But a lot of times I just go right through the top of the head. And you see there, just adds a little bit of profile. That's what it looks like, okay? Minnow hooked through the top of the head, right through the skull where it just stays on. You're just trying to find something that's durable.
That looks pretty good.
That's one way to hook a minnow. I would say 80% of the time, especially if we're fishing in the States, where these fish can be a little bit fussier, is I'm pinching that minnow head off. I'm going through the top of the skull, and I'm pinching that minnow head off right behind the gill plate. And basically what you're doing is you're putting some scent into the water, but when you do your big lifts, try to bring fish in, and then when the fish come up on you, when you bounce that spoon, you're just getting that treble hook to rock back and forth. And they key in on that minnow head, and minnow head, just a smaller profile for them. It's just easier for them to punch, and you're just giving those fish just a smaller target. Now, if you can imagine when a fish comes in and hits this, these fish have to move their gills and suck in enough water to pull that whole spoon in. When that minnow head is pinched off like that, and basically the whole thing is hanging vertically. And so here's something that's really, really important, is that your aggressive fish like that right there, and they're going to come in, they're just going to punch that bottom spoon. But sometimes what happens is if you get just an off bite where those fish aren't moving enough water through their gills.
Now watch this.
Sometimes just using a head like that, the fish aren't punching the bait hard, and it's kind of a deal where the fish is all over you and you just feel the weight of the fish when you lift the rod tip up. That bite is just off a little bit and it's hard to detect bites. Something that can work really well is instead of using a minnow head, pinch that minnow further back behind the gill plate where that minnow will ride up horizontal. I'll show you what that looks like.
This is really, look at that cool bait container. I like it. But this is really, really cool here.
So again, I'm going through the top of the skull and out the bottom. It just seems like it's just more durable and the minnow hangs on a little better. But instead of pinching it right behind the gills, I'm going further back. I'm going back far enough where basically I leave that air bladder intact. And so when you put that air bladder in there, you can see there when it's resting, that minnow has a tendency to hang more horizontal. And it seems like
look at that.
When fish are off, they have an easier time sucking in that horizontal profile versus the vertical profile, even though it's smaller. And so on an off bite, as crazy as it sounds, sometimes you're better off using more minnow just so that they can hang on that minnow and suck it in horizontally. They don't have to move as much water to get that in, where you'll just see them they suck it in, they suck in a little more, they choke up on it, and they can load up that rod tip. And so just a couple of different ways to rig minnows. I would say 80% of the time, I'm just using the head, just pinched out behind the gill. You're just offering just a little bit of meat on that bottom treble to bounce. Those fish come in and they punch it. If you get bites where it's hard to distinguish the bite because they're not grabbing it and pushing forward, hook the minnow so that you have more air in the minnow where it hangs horizontal. They can grab onto it and suck into it, and it seems like that ups your batting average. And so switch between those two things. And if you're on fisheries where those fish just want that big profile, don't be afraid to use a whole minnow. But that's kind of the options you have. Whole minnow, sometimes even multiple minnows on a treble hook. You've got the minnow head and you've got the half minnow. But experiment between those three things. There's different ways that you can do this. Don't think that you just have to use a minnow head or you just have to use a full minnow. Experiment and play around with that, because what you're going to find is that there's going to be times where one works really, really well. I've seen it over and over again where that half minnow trick gets them. There's other times where just using the minnow head gets them if you're missing fish on a whole minnow. But experiment between those three options: minnow head, half minnow, and full minnow. You'll get in a rhythm where you'll catch way more walleyes using spoons here this ice season.
Yeah, so I think that's just really, really good information there, and I'm not surprised that Jason's providing that kind of information, because he is a treasure trove. His brain is full of all kinds of fishing data, and the fact that he's able to share it with us and impart his wisdom. I really do appreciate it. And I've worked with Jason. Jason's been on the podcast before, and he's just a great dude. I really like him. Very down to earth and just a fantastic fisherman. So I think it's just good info. I'm gonna use. There's some lakes around me that I'm gonna try, using that tip this winter. So I think that's really good. I say really a lot. I've noticed that. I'm gonna try to stop saying really. It's gonna be one of my New Year's resolutions. Okay, for 2025. Good information there from Jason. Thank you, buddy. And we're gonna move on to. Okay, so I love soft jerkbaits. I know this isn't soft jerkbait season, but Bass Blaster brought this to my attention. There is a hard soft jerkbait. I know that doesn't make any sense. A hard jerkbait that's supposed to be like shaped, well, it's shaped like a Zoom Super Fluke, which a Zoom Super Fluke is one of the, it's kind of like the quintessential. I would say the first soft jerkbait was the Sluggo, the Lunker City Sluggo, easy for me to say. And then the Zoom Super Fluke really kind of took over. It's a great soft jerkbait. I've done very well with the Zoom Super Fluke. I nearly won a BFL tournament on Bull Shoals Lake in Arkansas on a Zoom Super Fluke. I have a lot of confidence in soft jerkbaits. The thing about soft jerkbaits is a lot of times people do not work a soft jerkbait aggressively enough and erratic enough. Aggressively hard jerks, erratic. It will trigger fish that won't trigger on anything else. And the harder you work it, the more erratic you work it, you can turn like negative or neutral fish into biting fish. They just bite out of just instinct or something. I've seen it so many times. But that being said, the problem with a soft jerkbait like a Zoom Super Fluke, single hook, and it's Texas rigged, and a lot of times I would just work that thing up at the surface more just because I needed to see the bass inhale the whole thing before I felt comfortable setting the hook. All right? So I wasn't really able to work lower in the water column with that super erratic bait. I always had to work it closer just because I knew that when you're working that aggressively, if a fish came up and didn't get all of it, well, you're gonna pull it out of the fish's mouth if it didn't have it all the way, right? So I always had to work that bait closer to the surface and make sure that whole bait was gone, and then I'd set the hook. Well, other people have had this issue, and I'm really intrigued by this bait. Okay, so here it is. This is from Bass Blaster. It's called the Flick. Okay, and that's what it looks like. So it's got the body of a Zoom Super Fluke, but it's a hard bait with treble hooks. And on the back of it, there is a screw lock that you can just put your own tail on, plastic tail, right? So this would solve the problems of a soft jerkbait wanting to fish it more in the middle of the water column, but, being like the old, like just a regular soft jerkbait, you wouldn't be able to get a good hook into them. Now, with two treble hooks, you can, and supposedly this has a similar, action to an actual Zoom Super Fluke. Okay, so this is from Bass Blaster. If you fish herring lakes, a fluke or your favorite soft jerkbait is king. But could there actually be something better sometimes? Dude named Joe Mitchell thought so and worked with lifelong fishing bud Colin Smith to design a hard-bodied fluke-style bait that they now call the Flick. It was the glitch. It's now the Flick, okay? The flick's been catching them, winning derbies, and is carried on Tackle Warehouse, so you know some folks want it. Yeah. The number one thing we were looking for was a better hookup ratio, especially on spotted bass. Having two trebles hanging below the bait is the main reason. The original fluke is an amazing bait, but you miss a lot of fish on that bait. Yes, you do. If you see it again, and you can see him take it, then you don't. But you got to see it. We also wanted better castability. Bass eat a fluke like crazy on windy days, but you can hardly throw it in a stiff wind. Our baits throw way better in the wind. Yeah, so that makes a ton of sense. My favorite is the tail off a Zoom Super Fluke, but I only... did I skip something here? Okay, no. Okay, so like I said earlier, you can tip this thing. It's got that screw lock, screw lock on the back end of it, and then you can just put a regular, just the tail of a Zoom Super Fluke on there. So my favorite tail is the tail off a Zoom Super Fluke, but I only fish herring lakes. People who don't fish herring lakes like to put a paddle tail, like off the back of a Kitech on there, and wind it with a straight retrieve like a traditional swim bait. It works especially well above grass. So, yeah, it's, I'll talk about it. Okay, so this is what I was going to talk about. I really want to get this thing, but it's sold out right now on Tackle Warehouse. And one of these is $35. Okay? So Tackle Warehouse, they are out of these right now. On the website there, I'm showing you, it doesn't look like it has treble hooks. It does have treble hooks. I don't know why they didn't put that in the picture. But, yeah, it's a $35 bait. And I can say that it's probably worth it if it's got that same action of, of a real Zoom Super Fluke. If it's got the action of a real Zoom Super Fluke, then $35 is worth it. The thing about being in Minnesota, though, is that we have a lot of pike, and boy, I can't. $35 down the hole. Like, it's very easy to lose lures here in this state with all the pike there are. So, yeah, but I'm super interested in this bait. I really, really am, because a fluke that you can throw forever, and it's got, you can fish in the middle of the water column as aggressively, and then you got that way better hookup percentage. I think that is awesome. So this is a review of the flick on Tackle Warehouse, and I think it sums this up very, very well. If you're wondering, well, why does this bait need to exist? The reviewer, 5 out of 5 stars, gave it this bait, and says, best hard-bodied fluke out there. For those of you who don't understand the concept of the bait, let me fill you in. Ever fish a fluke in open water? Ever miss open water fluke bites? Tired of trying to find the perfect open water fluke rig that will stick them every time? Well, this is the answer. So yeah, that is a huge deal. That's from Hambone in South Carolina. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense to me, and I'm very, very intrigued. I'm a huge believer in soft jerkbaits because of their how erratic they are, and it's not a predictable. It's not a walk the dog, thing. It is everywhere. And the harder you work, fish are like cats, man. Certain retrieves, especially erratic retrieves, will trigger fish when nothing else will. And you have to, it might go against what you'd think, that, okay, if a fish is neutral, to work something really fast and aggressively. But it works a lot of times. And so a soft jerkbait with that erratic action, if this hard jerkbait, this hard soft jerkbait, can mimic, that same erratic action of a fluke, I got to tell you, I'm probably all in on it. All right. Moving onward and upward, Christian soldiers. So, all right. So this is something that I worry about in my career. There's been a few times that severe weather has approached and overtaken me during my job out on the water, filming. It's something I have a deep appreciation of Mother Nature. I know weather very well, and I know how dangerous it can be on the water, and especially when there is severe weather headed your way. And I can't emphasize this enough. Everybody, we have phones, okay? We got radar in our hands. There's no excuse for being caught in a dangerous storm anymore. Okay, you can see these, there's warnings, there's ample time to get off the water or go somewhere that's more protected, okay? So what I'm about to show you, and the guy that this happened to, he says that he messed up. But this is crazy, and this is my fear about being on the water and filming, especially in tournaments, because you're kind of at the mercy of the angler that you're with and what they want to do. All right, so watch this and just hang on. Oh, he lost his hat. We're out of here. Storm's coming. Yeah, should not be out there, dude. That's a bass boat, but it's not a big bass boat. It's a light aluminum bass boat. Now they're like, okay, we got to get to land. You can see the land coming up. Like, okay. So they're going to try to beach this thing. Just insanity. They're just getting pelted. It's like they're in a hurricane. And the tornado, by the way, this is just straight line winds. This is not the tornado. So they beach this thing. Now it's beached, but watch what happens. Here comes the tornado. And flips the boat over. Love this music, by the way. There's the very lucky gentleman there, probably calling his loved ones to tell him that somehow he survived. But golly, man, what are you doing? So luckily that gentleman is okay, but it's just crazy here. So let's get into it here a little bit. Let's get into this story here. This is from Crosswalk. I actually learned about this through the wonderful Bass Blaster newsletter, and also, so they got this from this Crosswalk online magazine, I guess is what it is. So, pastor survives tornado on a boat, credits God for miraculous escape. All right, and let's see here. I want to go to this main article here. A fisherman seen in a now viral video surviving a tornado while bracing himself on a boat is crediting God for his miraculous escape. That man is Pastor Brian Johnson of First Baptist Church in Winnie, Texas, who says he and a friend made the unwise decision to fish on Saturday, believing the bass would be biting with an oncoming storm. I get that. I understand that. I don't, but you got to get out of there before it hits you. The storm, though, was much stronger and closer than he had anticipated. The two men took their boat to the Stanlind Reservoir in Chambers County, Texas. I shouldn't be here telling you this story. I made a terrible decision, Johnson told CNN. All the warnings were there, and I didn't heed them. Yet somehow God spared me. So I gotta believe he spared me for a purpose. Video of the incident shows the duo trying desperately to escape the tornado before it expands, engulfing the boat with winds and rain. Eventually, the boat flips and the video ends. The tornado was later confirmed to be an EF3 twister with winds of 138 miles per hour. I'm holding onto the boat because I'm holding onto it from the bottom now because the wind is just ripping, Johnson told KTRK. And I'm like, it's going to pick me up out of the water any second. So I'm trying to hold on, but I can't find Tony. So I'm hollering for Tony, and I'm now thinking, oh my gosh, my friend is dead. He's drowned under this boat or something. So I'm pulling on the boat, trying to lift it up. I'm hollering for him, beating on the boat, and nothing. Thankfully, his friend was under the boat hiding. Each member of the party, including the dog, survived. Thank God the dog lived. Johnson said he believes God spared his life so he can continue to tell others about Jesus. So let's just watch this again. It's just insane. Don't be this dude. It's approaching. You see it coming in. Here comes the rain. Hits him. This is not the tornado. This is just, you're in the thick of the severe storm right now. Let's not forget about lightning. Lightning flash right there, of course. You know, that can kill you just as easily as a tornado. So they're just trying to find land. His friend's pointing. As if the land's gonna save you, you know? I guess it's better. Now they're getting closer to land here. They beach it, and here comes the EF3. See you later. Well, glad everybody's all right. As we say in Minnesota, oofda. Wow. Yeah, so that's not, you never want to find yourself in that position, okay? Come on. All right, so moving on here. Gosh, this bait right here. We're going to talk about this bait right here a little bit. This is let me get it closer to my face so you can see it in, it's in focus there. That is a Berkley Power Switch, and it is a 3-inch, this is the 3-inch model. HD black nose shiner. And I gotta tell you, I'm really intrigued by this bait for a lot of different reasons. Okay, I think it has a lot of applications. It was created by a walleye angler, professional walleye angler named John Hoyer, for forward-facing sonar applications, because that's what that right there, forward-facing sonar, FFS. But I think it's got a lot of applications for a lot of different things. I can't wait to use this bait for smallmouth. I think I could catch them now behind a warm water discharge, you know, that I fish. But when this bait came out, I was just like, I really, really love this bait. And I love how realistic it is. It's so realistic. It's such a great looking bait underwater. It's erratic. This little tail, it shimmies. It's just, I love this bait. It's soft. It's got power bait in it. I believe in power bait 100%. I know it works. I've seen it work firsthand. I've seen smallmouth attracted to power bait. So anything power bait, I get keyed up about, right? So I saw this on Target Walleye. And so John Hoyer, the creator of this bait, has been using it for ice fishing. And so I thought, okay, I can use this as a vertical jigging walleye bait down at pool, Red Wing basically. That's pool 4. I should know that. Pool 4, Red Wing, below Lock and Dam number 3. I fish down there this time of year. It's also a warm water discharge thanks to nuclear energy. And a lot of times you drop a bait down and you just vertical jig, bring it up, 4 or 6 inches and just hold it. You can jig it too if you like. You don't have to though. That's the crazy thing about it. You just hold it and boom, saugers and walleyes. And you can catch a lot of them doing that. And I think this would be a great bait. I think this would be a really great bait for doing that. I know it will. Okay, I know it's going to work well. I like that it's power bait too. They can smell it. And then it's also erratic. I think you're going to be able to trigger fish with it that wouldn't trigger on some other stuff. I used the Berkley finisher down there last winter and caught them really, really good. I said really, really again. I caught them really good. So I really believe that there's a lot of applications for this bait. So I'm going to use it as vertical jigging, walleye, river walleye bait. But I also was like, yeah, ice fishing too, right? And so, yes, it was confirmed that yes, you can use the power switch for ice fishing. So here we go from Target Walleye. Brett McComas, Target Walleye. How John Hoyer fishes a Berkley Power Switch through the ice. We've talked about how Hoyer works the Berkley Power Switch for open water walleyes on forward-facing sonar, but it also became one of his go-to ice fishing baits. Catches eater-sized fish and big bruisers like this 28-incher he iced with his bud Jay Siemens. Boom, right there. How do you like that? I'm kind of a big fan. Says, similar to open water, how he fishes them through the ice depends on how the fish are reacting to it on sonar. He broke down some of those tricks below after a couple of days on the ice in South Dakota when the fish's moods changed. He tied on a 2.5-inch Berkley Power Switch in the HD blue wizard color and never had to take it off. But he did have to switch up his cadence to seal the deal. So the color options on this bait are so good. They're so realistic. And just look at that bait because it's just the attention to detail. It looks like you got a minnow on your line when you're fishing it. It's just, I love this bait so much. All right, so day one was all about slackline pops to attract them and get their interest. As soon as they locked on, I made them chase it up quickly 2 to 3 feet with a quick, sharp cadence. They would absolutely choke it. It's got, like I said, it's got this really unique, erratic action. Day 2 is different. I would use the same slackline pops, making the bait dart around and call them in. As soon as the fish was directly under me and coming up for a look, I would sneak one more good pop in while they were 18 inches below the bait. The next step was easy. Hold my rod dead still at the top of the stroke and let the bait search back to center. This was the ultimate move that day, and once I figured it out, they were choking it just as good or better than the day before. And yeah, I'm gonna get some of those 2-inch suckers, power switches, and we're gonna ice fish with them this year. So yeah, there it is. That's the proof in the pudding right there. Power switch hanging out of a iced walleye. And I'm super excited about this option because I love fishing new baits. I love fishing just anything power bait. Honestly, I'm almost to the point where as far as like plastics, if it's made of soft plastics, I almost don't really want to fish any other soft plastics unless it has power bait. And if it is some soft plastic that's got a great action or just a really cool bait that I want to fish, I just put a lot of power bait on it. I want to find that gulp gel and use that for stuff that doesn't have power bait built in. I'm such a believer. I know Berkley's got like legit scientists that figured it out. I think a lot of these scents that they put on, other manufacturers put on plastics, I think is a bunch of nonsense. I don't feel that way about Berkley's stuff. I feel like they have really got it dialed in and figured out. So I've harped about this so many times. So I'm a big proponent of power bait and gulp and all their stuff, the extra scent stuff that they have with the power bait, it's all good. It's all legit. Even just the original power bait is legit. So I'm excited to try this power bait Power Switch for ice fishing this year. All right, so we got to wrap up here. We are past an hour and a half, so we're just going to wrap up. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that's going on. We're just going to, well, the big thing that's happening, okay, upcoming events. So this coming weekend is the Minneapolis Boat Show. All right, I'm thinking I might go to this. Just curious about, what's going on in the fishing boat realm of things, I'm wondering if they're going to have just some jet boats. I just want to check out what's happening in everything fishing boats. Like river boat. Hopefully they have some aluminum river boats. But I'm also I just like seeing what's happening in the walleye and the bass boat world. I'm just a fishing nerd. Okay, so everything about fishing, I want to keep my my finger to the pulse of what's happening. So check it out. The Minneapolis Boat Show is this weekend, January 23rd through the 26th at the Minneapolis Convention Center. So if you're in my neck of the woods, anyway, might consider that. So I may, if I'm not fishing, I'm going to check that out. Likely. I don't know about likely. I need to do a video. I would bring my video camera and I'd do some stuff, but it's got to be worth my while. There's got to be some kind of boat that's doing. They got all kinds of new boats and stuff, so I'm sure there's stuff that I could capture. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to go or not. It's like 50-50 right now, but wanted to tell you about that. You should check it out. And in the Angling Uploaded news department, so I was hoping that my partner in crime, Pete Wagner, another fishing show co-host, he really needs to get back on this podcast. Honestly, I can do these alone, not well. Okay, I can do them alone, not well. Don't prefer it. Pete needs to come back. It's really not another fishing podcast without Pete Wagner. So I'm just going to keep doing these and keep hounding him to do these with me. There was a chance that he was going to hop in on this podcast, but he's taking care of his kids right now, and things are. He's also taking Christmas lights off his house right now, so he hasn't been able to join us, unfortunately. But I did give him the opportunity. It's just he's too busy. I'm going to keep hounding him. But another fishing podcast is not another fishing podcast without Pete Wagner. But we're going to keep on doing it anyway, and we're going to get him on soon. Okay, I promise. But I want to talk about Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, we are probably going to go sturgeon fishing, lake sturgeon fishing through the ice on the St. Croix River. Okay. And that's probably, we're going to do this live. I'm going to try, if we go sturgeon fishing, either way, we're fishing on Wednesday, and I'm going to try to do it live. I haven't done a live thing in a while, so there's going to be some trial and error there. I'm probably going to mess up a little bit, but I'm thinking we're going to attempt a live fishing session, thinking around noon on Wednesday. So look for that. And then on Friday, January 24th, at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, check this out. I went ice fishing for the first time this season. I went ice fishing for catfish. So, quest for catfish. Quest for winter catfish on the Horseshoe Chain. Check that out. Coming Friday, January 24th, this Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, I love targeting channel catfish through the ice. It's a lot of fun. And the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes, if you're not familiar with the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes, it's the Sauk River that they dammed, and it kind of made all these lakes full of catfish, and they're getting bigger in there. If you're not familiar where the Horseshoe Chain of Lakes is, look up Richmond, Minnesota. It's kind of by St. Cloud. It's a fantastic fishery. What's so funny about Minnesota is everybody that lives up there, that fishes up there, doesn't want the catfish in there. Like when I went there, when I was filming that video, like I would ask people, "Hey, how you doing? You targeting catfish?" They looked at me like I was crazy. It's like, I find it remarkable. Like, why wouldn't you target the biggest, there are muskies in that system, but they're like the second biggest fish that are in that system. And there's a lot of them in there. Okay? So it was definitely a quest, and check it out on Friday, 5 p.m. You're going to see me in all my splendor. And, fishing is about the journey. Okay? It's about the journey. It's about the pursuit of catfish in this particular video. So check that out, January 24th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Appreciate you watching. All right, well, how to find us. If you are listening to this podcast, thanks for listening. If you're just watching this podcast, you can listen to this podcast. If you want to listen to the podcast, we're available on all podcasting apps. Okay, every podcasting app. And then if you are listening to this podcast and you want to watch the podcast, well, you can watch it on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube, Facebook. I'm trying to upload to Facebook like the whole podcast, and it's been a real bugger for some reason. But I'm trying to upload the full podcast on Facebook too. But for sure, just type in Angling Uploaded in YouTube or Facebook, Rumble, and you can find the podcast there. You can also just find Angling Uploaded, which is if you're just finding us for the first time, another fishing podcast exists underneath the umbrella of Angling Uploaded. So find us, search Angling Uploaded on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and Instagram for all things Angling Uploaded and all things Another Fishing Podcast and Another Fishing Show. Would love to get back doing those videos, but they take a lot of work. But I really want to get back to doing more Another Fishing Show episodes. But we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me. Another Fishing Podcast 55 is coming to a conclusion. It's 2025. We've got a new president, guys. It's going to be a wild, wild 4 years. I'm here for it. Strap on your seatbelt. Let's go. Thanks for watching or listening.